All right. So good afternoon, everyone, for joining in. I see there are 34 participants already in, and I'm sure there are more who will join in soon. Good afternoon, Kaushik. Thank you
Good
for accepting
afternoon.
the invite.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for inviting me here.
You do look very different from the
Yeah, yes,
photograph I saw on LinkedIn.
I think that's what I need to tell everybody that, yeah, the look is very different from what you see in the photograph. I think probably it's more to do with the lockdown than anything else. But I'm enjoying my new lockdown look. And this also goes on to show that, the virtual world is going to look very different in the coming days.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so let's start off. And what we're going to do is, first of all, let me give a little introduction to you, for you, Kaushik, to all our participants. I'm sure everyone should be able to see the screen by now. I've shared the screen. And so, Kaushik Chakraborty, he's the Director, Human Resources with Savills. He has worked in other organizations. He was a senior director HR in JLL. He's worked with companies like Royal Bank of Scotland, ABN AMRO Bank, ICICI Prudential, Max New York. More than 2 decades of experience. He's also very happy to see that he is with Toastmasters International President and Division Governor. Those, I mean, at present, what I understand is that you are president.
No, no,
And
I'm not holding any official position in Toastmasters. I
okay,
was a division governor in Toastmasters.
all right, all right. And I saw that you are a great learner. You have undergone your education from various institutes and universities. Very happy to see that. I'm glad to see that. And in fact, when I was going through all the licenses and certifications you've gone through, I'm sure, especially the youngsters who have joined in today, there are a lot of youngsters who are joining in as well. There are HR students as well as HR professionals. Um, to see the kind of passion that you have for learning is there on the screen for all to see, the kind of learning that you have gone through. So I'm not going to read all of that. That's quite a lot. And I wanted to show this to all our audience so they are aware of who you are and the fact that you are a great learner as well. Now, with that, I will leave the floor to you for the next few minutes so that you can introduce yourself in your own way, and we would like to know you a little bit more. Uh, Professionally, of course, I've told about what you do, but maybe you can describe a little bit about yourself professionally as well as personally, as much as you would like to share.
Okay. So as rightly pointed out by Zubin, I work as head of HR for Savills. Now, Savills is an organization. It's a global conglomerate. We are there, there for last 165 years, and across almost 70 countries now. The India operation is quite a new operation, and that's exactly the mandate with which I was brought in. So I'm setting up this organization from HR perspective. Okay, we want to set up a people organization. So it's been more than a year that I'm working with, almost 1.5 years, and it's been a beautiful journey in the sense I was virtually the third employee of the new setup. Today we are 300 plus, and our industry is we are in the consulting space of real estate, and it's not easy. It's a brick and mortar organization. So having specialized 300 plus resources in a span of 1 year has been a fairly exciting journey by all means. I had, again, as pointed out by Zubin, 20 plus years of experience, but I've not been a typical, HR guy in the sense I've been a business guy who moved to HR at a later stage. Maybe that's something which I'll dwell in some of my conversations, in some time. But for me, HR is not just a profession, but it's more of a passion. Okay, that's what people excites me, and I love being with people, and so I don't take my work as just a professional thing to do. and I need to be there for 9 to 5. It's much beyond me. It's almost a part of my life. Uh, Personally, I am father of two beautiful daughters. One is 14 years old, the other is 10 years old. My wife, she is a professional photographer. She was a journalist who is now a professional photographer, and she is into mostly into portraits and now into product photography as well in the new e-commerce space. So that's about me. My mom is also. I also have my mom with me. So that's the family. I'm passionate about traveling and trekking. I travel and trek quite a bit. At least one trek in a year is what I try and do every year. And I've seen. I think somewhere I can claim I've seen quite a bit of Himalayas. So that's another area that I love to explore in my personal life. So that is it.
All right, good. Thank you so much. In fact, there are things which, of course, we do not read in those professional profiles that we get to know when we start listening to you. So it's very interesting when you said this. And I guess in our conversation as we go forward, we'll get to know a little bit more. But first of all, I want to start off with your present profile and in your present role and in the last few years that you have been working. So we will consider the last 5 years, and there are a few questions that I have for you. So the first thing that I would like to ask you again, in terms of understanding about your role in the industry and the kind of work that you've been doing in the industry. So my first question is, what goes into creating a great place to work in the industry in relation to your present role in Savills?
Okay. Yeah. So to me, a great place to work is not generally a certification, but it's much beyond that. It's from an HR perspective, creating a space, where people can thrive, people feel excited to come to their workplace. There is creativity in the space, there is innovation in the space, and there is that sense of belonging, which is there in place. I think that's what HR personnel should strive and create within an organization. That's at least the way I look at it. Now, in relationship to last 5 years, since you mentioned that, I think HR as a function, what I also saw was really expanded in last 5 years. Things which was not found to be that important, or that was not really in the forefront of all conversation, has today come into the forefront. And some of the things that I would like to, for example, in the previous organization in JLL, I saw in my stint of 7.5 years the organization growing into, almost 12,000 people, 12,000 plus people organization. Now, as the organization grew, the agenda also grew, in terms of the HR agenda. So there, for example, I was not only taking care of part of HR, but I was also heading CSR for them. I was taking care of leading CSR for them. I was leading the DNI, the diversity and inclusion practice, for them. Now, these two areas, to me, are two key pillars, of an organization. I mean, whatever way you look at it, whether it's part of HR or whether it's not part of HR. Today, diversity and inclusion, an organization should have that inclusive space. And it is HR which creates that inclusion, within an organization. Everybody, should feel included, being in that organization. Diversity is, how an organization should look at it. It's not only about gender diversity, but you have diversity in every possible way. You have, an organization should not be only reflective of millennials working out of that place, but in an organization, in a meeting, you need to have fourth generation wine should be there within that meeting, reflective. That's a reflection of an organization. That's an inclusive organization. There's diversity which is present within an organization. So in many ways, a lot of things have changed. Technology has changed completely. There is a whole technological drive that we are seeing, in the last 5 years. And if you don't invest in technology when it comes to HR, you don't create a great place to work. A place of work today has to be driven by technology. I mean, any organization or any department for that matter, if they are not calling themselves to be a digital organization, and more so in the the current COVID scenario, it has also come to the forefront. But that's something which are being talked of for a fairly long time. So we've also seen last 5 years for a great place to work. Technology is something which is which has to be brought into the forefront. And as HR leaders or any HR person, they need to adapt technology, in the work that they do. So these are two things. CSR, again, I think CSR is a great agenda for an organization, but to me, it's also a great engagement tool for an organization. Okay, I mean, every individual wants to give back in some way or the other. Creating the platform through which they can contribute is something which is a moral responsibility of an organization. And I think for HR, it's a great way of engaging with the larger workforce.
All right. In fact, as we are conversing and as you were talking about DNI practices, I have a question which I thought is relevant. I saw in the chat, Gaurav has put up a question. Kindly share some good DNI practices which leads to more inclusive culture in organization. Maybe we could, ask you about your views on maybe a particular practice that you have seen or you have incorporated in your organization, present or previous, or maybe a best practice that you have seen related to DNI.
Okay, for example, gender diversity. Okay, that's one of the key agenda. And now I come from an organization which represents, though the consulting space, but the real estate, is the backbone. And for an organization, which has real estate attached to it, it is extremely difficult to attract, women in the workforce. Okay, the moment the real estate name comes in, a lot of times it doesn't become a preferred, employer for a woman who is looking for career options. Okay, because it's the immediate image that comes in, which might not be true, is probably construction sites, workforce where there's a lot of labor management involved. So it becomes it automatically doesn't become a preferred XYZ reason. The Indian value, it doesn't become a preferred employment opportunity for a woman. Now that was a key challenge that we had. Now we came in my previous at that point of time, DNI was more of initial. The buzzword was at a very, very nascent stage at that point of time, and we had to come in with a lot of initiatives. And in initiatives like, for example, gradual return to work. When coming back from your maternity leave, we were the first organization out of 14 countries in Asia, and there were much more so-called progressive society country around us. But we in India were the first one who actually came up with a gradual return to work policy. Okay, where there was a whole process through which slowly and steadily after maternity leave, a female employee comes in and slowly and steadily assimilates into the working condition. Even in this organization, we have, for example, things like what we call as evangelists. But the primarily it means that there is a set of people within the organization. Okay, and there are male members also. They're like friend, philosopher, guide. If you have anything, if it is normally what happens, if there's a kind of a harassment which is happening or something which is bothering you, there is this set of 4-5 people in the organization that you can reach out to. It's beyond HR. It is beyond legal. It is beyond the ethics officer. But people that you can reach out. Things that you can't talk to your manager. Things you are a little reluctant to talk to your your HR business partner. So that's another thing that we created for ourselves within the organization. Then we went in for this organization. We actually give more percentage, the consulting fee to a recruitment consultant if we get a woman candidate. So the message that goes out to our partners also is that we are an organization, which is driving gender diversity, and we want you to partner with us in that whole journey. And of course, we will remunerate you accordingly. That's something which we try. So there are, I can go on and on, things that we can keep doing about it. But these are some of the things which is coming to my mind, to top of the mind at this point of time.
All right, good. Thank you so much for answering that. In fact, I thought it's relevant at the point of time when you were discussing DNI.
Absolutely, yeah.
So let me go on to my next question. So, what are your ideas and suggestions on strategic initiatives to drive employee engagement and productivity within the organization? So, I think employee engagement is one of the questions that a lot of people are asking at this point in time in the situation of lockdown as well. But
Yeah.
let us hear your overall ideas and suggestions, not only considering the lockdown period, but in general, what could be what could be the strategy in driving employee engagement and productivity?
Okay, so one is employee engagement, as a term, I think is uh, or in the corporate milieu, it's a very it's a term which is misunderstood a lot rather than really understood. I mean, I love saying this, and I'd like to reiterate on it. Employee engagement is not about birthday parties, Zumba classes and yoga classes. It is much beyond that. Okay, I mean, those are things which are important, but employee engagement is what is the extent to which an employee, to me, feel connected to the organization. There is a sense of purpose, with which he connects with the organization. The sense of purpose that you create for an individual to be part of the organization, I think is what employee engagement is all about. That's purely my definition. It's not a classical any definition of any kind, but to me, I think that's the prime objective of HR. To create for every individual in the organization to create that connect with the organization where they feel that there is a sense of purpose, of being part of the organization. It aligns with their individual purpose in life. That is something, which is very, very important in some way or the other. So that is, to me, is what employee engagement is all about. So how to create that connect. Now, today, in many ways, if you look at it, and I can give various statistics of various kinds. One of the biggest, you're talking of pandemic, the whole COVID thing, but I think the biggest pandemic has been in this world for last many years to come, especially after the GFC and in last, the new age economy has been the pandemic of being stuck in a wrong job, and the pandemic of stress, the pandemic of overthinking. There is this statistic which says that people from the age bracket to between 25 to 45, the maximum number of death in US, happens. The maximum number of heart attack that happens in this age bracket is on a Monday morning between 7 a.m. to 10:30 a.m., which means that's the time when you go to your office space, you start a new week, you're stuck in a wrong job, and you hate it so much, out of the stress, you actually end up giving your life. So that's the kind of workplaces which is there in most places. And as HR, I think this is exactly what our role is, to create a place, a workplace where there's a sense of freedom which is there. There's a sense of creativity which is there. You create a playground. People should not, I mean, half of the time people look at, and I mean, why this, all this statistics that are talking of now, which means that people come to a workplace thinking that it's more of a prison than anything else. You feel completely, you just want to come out of that workplace. You don't enjoy being in that space. Now, that is what employee engagement, that's where employee engagement comes in. You should create that playground where that playfulness is visible within every individual, in an organization. I think that is what objective of employee engagement from HR perspective is all about. And what we do, yes, I think that's something which you asked of. I mean, there are various things. For example, I spoke about CSR. I think CSR is a great platform, where you engage
Absolutely.
in creating, different initiatives where they feel that, the organization is creating that platform for them to, give back to the society. Uh, you talk about learning, for example, in the current context, one of the things that we ensured was that, uh, there is a learning, we are calling it at the lockdown learning session every day 4:30 p.m. There is every day, we have not missed a single day till today. There's a lockdown learning session which happens in the organization, that too by somebody within the organization, and this is like all India. You also have departments doing their learning, initiatives and whatever it is. There's the e-learning platform that people are going through different training. But this is something suddenly in that lockdown learning on a Friday evening. We have things like a cocktail making class. By where families are coming together. Yesterday was a Friday, and there was a sketching class by one of our employees. Even my daughters participated. So suddenly, in the current context, when workplace is not, your so-called office space, but your home space is actually your workplace, your family is constantly there with you as you work, they should feel as much connected to your workplace as you. So, you need to somewhere ensure that the larger family feels connected in the current context. To me, that is something which I strive. Today, I think the organization people know each other far more than what they knew of each other earlier. We did something like Savills Got Talent. The kind of talent that came out of it. So we have something called Workplace, which is like a Facebook platform within a workplace. Exactly, it's a product by Facebook only. Now, in that platform, so people have come out with their sketches, their photographs, their dance. People have danced, people have come up with their music, videos, and suddenly, our CEO and we all sat on it and we realized that we had so much of talent within the organization. You just felt humbled that we never knew that we are part of such a great talent in and around us. So it created and what I felt, probably every individual within the organization felt the same thing. And suddenly there was a larger connect that everybody felt with the organization. And that is something, I think what one, to a very large extent, I feel HR should strive doing, the larger connect with the workplace.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective on employee engagement. In fact, some of the things you just shared in the end are ideas that people can take away really at present. Everyone's been looking for ideas on how we can engage. I think we have every organization, every person in HR, and even ideas are coming from people from different functions on how we can do these employee engagement initiatives. So I think that's very creative, very nice, and you rightly pointed out that we are all with our families, and I think the line that we used to draw, at least physically, in terms of home and workplace, somehow that line has been erased as of now. Maybe mentally we have to still draw that line. I think it's become a bit more challenging. So I think involving, like you've said, involving the family in the process in some way, and make them feel part of the whole process. I think that really works. So thank you for sharing that idea, and I'll now move on to my next question. So this is again regarding talent management um, and strategy. And I'll probably ask you more strategy questions than I've asked other people till now. But I would really love to know your views on. Again, it's a generic question, but I would love to hear some examples from you as well, from your experience building the right talent management strategy. What are your views on that?
Well, I think the biggest differentiator today for an organization, and people may say a lot of things, but the fact remains that what is an organization? Organization is about people, right, and nothing else. It's a set of people who come together and formed an entity, which is an organization. Now, the differentiator for an organization is also its people. An organization stand out because of the people that they have. And people are what? People are, what do they bring into the table? They bring in the talent and nothing else, right? And that's what you hire a person for. Now, what is important is that one is, of course, to hire the right talent. For example, my whole striving for last 1 year, in this organization was to, attract the right talent. You're a new organization, like an organization which might be a huge conglomerate outside India, but in India, it's a new brand name, right? So to be able to attract the right talent, and when we say that attract the right talent, there has to be a talent alignment as well. People need to believe in certain work ethics. There has to be certain alignment in terms of thought process, especially at a leadership level and within the team level. So talent of certain kinds, is something which we were very clear about. Slowly this year, what we are transitioning into is we need to manage this talent, we need to retain this talent the right way. And that's the reason you need to clearly define what are your values that you stand for. So, for example, one of the things that we did was we were very clear, and there is a global values that Savills stand for. Based on that, we created the competencies that we want to look at every individual, whether it is leadership or below leadership. The competency mapping was done. So today, in this year, when we are getting into promotion and other appraisal after a year or so, we are also looking into how the competencies that has been clearly defined. That is what we are going to assess for an individual at a appraisal level, to that particular individual to move up the within the organization, upgrade. So, or we find out the development agenda. So these are all different aspects of talent management strategy. And I think you need to ensure that you develop your talent, you retain your talent, and you define and hire the right kind of talent, because that is what is going to, that's the only differential. Your talent is the only differential in an organization, and actually nothing else. And that is the how important it is. And whoever it is, business, as HR, one of the things which is very important for the HR to do is make business understand this fact that there is nothing more to an organization than its people, and people means talent and nothing else.
All right, good. Thank you for answering that. Before I move to the next question, I just want to tell the audience that in case if you have questions, you can type it in the chat box. If it's immediately relevant to what we are discussing, then I will ask Kaushik that question. If it is not relevant to what we're discussing at the moment, then I will ask that question at the end of all the questions. So, Kaushik, let's move on. And I will now come to challenges. This is actually my favorite question. I love to ask this. This is the segment of our discussion where we get to learn from challenges. So, in your experience, in your career, do you recollect? I mean, you must have faced a lot of challenges, but we're looking at perhaps one biggest challenge that might stand out of this whole crowd of challenges that you've faced. And please tell us a little bit about that, and how did you face it? How did you overcome it? What were your feelings? The way you would like to describe.
Well, I think to be very honest, I mean, it might just sound a little cliched here, but this role and taking over and moving from an organization of 12,000 people to a completely new challenge, where the challenge is to set up an organization as a competition in the same industry, from nowhere. We started virtually, me, my CEO and CFO, we started working out of a co-working space in one table. That is where we were in December 2018. And today, as we speak, we are there in 5 cities, 300 plus people, some of the finest offices. I mean, we were very proud of the offices that we have designed in, wherever we have come up with our offices. Okay, so, new age offices and everything is there today. And all these things have happened in last, in a 1 year span. I told you that I was virtually the third employee in the new setup. And today, it's a 300 plus organization. Now, it's suddenly when I actually look back this December, and it was a feeling of you just realize that how you were able to overcome all the challenges and able to put each and every dots in place. uh, Today I love saying this, but I don't mind saying it in public. This thing also, I think our leadership team that we have set up, which is around the top 15 people that we have, I think is one of the best leadership team that is there in the industry. And most of the players in our industry have been there in India for 20 plus years. To be able to have the right kind of leaders completely aligned, with the right kind, with similar kind of objective, with similar kind of dreams, completely aligned with the organization objective, was something which was a challenge. At the same time, something which we were able to meet very successfully. Okay, so yeah, so I think I will put my last year, 1 year, and as we completed 1.5 years, this is a new world that we are all sitting in. I think that's another bigger challenge in the whole process of taking up that challenge.
All right, thank you for answering that question. And I'm already getting some questions in the chat box, but I think I still don't have a question which I can ask you immediately. Maybe I'll take a few of them at the end. So, from challenges, now we're looking at a memorable moment. Any moment in your career, any incident, it could be, but something positive, something. Um, that maybe touched your heart. I don't know how to put it. Something so memorable that it stands out in your mind. Would you be able to think about something like that?
I mean, there has been uh, obviously, with 20 years of experience, there has been quite a few. But as an HR professional, one of the key satisfying moment was so with my previous organization, when we got certified as a great place to work, that was a great moment. And in this organization, okay, so here again, 1 year into operations, if you know that, uh, in fact, you're not even eligible to participate in Great Place to Work if you are, less than 3 years. Uh, but somehow, legally, we had actually registered ourselves 3 years back in India. So technically, we were there operational. We had a liaisoning office, which was already there in India. Okay, so we had few people managing that whole show and things like that. Okay, so we could participate, but within a year to become a great place to work was something which none of us believed. Okay, and none of us thought that can happen. And so to me, that moment when we got that email saying that yes, you have been certified as a great place to work, and with just a year of completion, I think that was a very very satisfying moment personally in my professional life.
Okay. I think that's a great achievement, and probably I don't know how much time we can give for that kind of a discussion, but um, we would probably have to do that on another day. We do not have that much of a time, but I would really love to know more about how you did it, what has been your experience, what was the journey. But it's good to know. Of course, it would be a notable memory, something that you would carry with you for a long, long time. So now we're moving into a personal section, and so personal section would be to know a little bit more about you. And one of the things we would love to know is what do you do when you're not working? So do you have hobbies, some things that you do when you're not working?
Okay, one is I personally feel that, especially in HR kind of a field, luckily, that's that's also my interest. People are my area of interest. So, and I love saying this. Every morning when I get up and I go to my workplace, now of course it's at home. Uh, I, uh, I don't distinguish. I think I look forward to be in that space. Uh, but in terms of hobbies and interest, as I mentioned, I love traveling. Okay, and I whether it is within India, but I do a lot of whenever there's a long weekend or any small little chance that I get, I take my car, and I don't have a car. I actually have a truck. Okay, so in the sense I have a Isuzu truck. So people who know me know are aware of it, and it's always been like that. Okay, I'm known as the whichever organization I worked in. I was always the official holiday planner in that organization. Okay, so I pick up my truck and leave for the hills. Okay, that's but I love saying this that every quarter if I within 2 3 months if I don't see the snow-capped mountains, I go through a huge amount of churn within myself. So that is how important it is for me. Seeing the snow-capped mountains. So I love mountains. I try and do one trek every year. Okay, that's like a must-do tick, which I try and do. Other than that, I love reading. Okay, I not only books, but I also have interest in a lot of these blogs, and I love to do a lot of reading, and that's been a long, it's been an interest which has been there with me for a long, long time. I love reading books as well as blogs.
All right. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, there's one hobby that we share, which is love for reading. I love reading so much that the minimum number of books I read is one or two per month, sometimes even more. But that's something that I picked up very early in life, and I'm so happy to know that you have the same. In fact, one of the questions I'm just seeing again, it's related to learning though. So this question comes from Umesh. Umesh is asking, what is your daily routine? But I don't want to ask that to you. But he has asked another question: how much time do you spend on learning? Maybe on a daily basis, monthly, yearly, I don't know, but how much time do you spend on learning in general?
Um, Look, I think one of the things I believe is very important is uh, learning is a continuous journey, and you need to invest into yourself. Okay, something which is very very important. Now, I'll give an example. Okay, and uh, for example, this December, I completed 1 year, setting up this in this new challenge of setting up Savills in India, and I knew that I wanted. I'll not say a break, but I didn't. The purpose was not a break. The purpose was that I wanted to pause and deep dive onto myself. That's something which I want to do something, and that's something which I try and do every year. Now I went for a walk. Okay, so there is this. I don't want to get into the details of it, but it's a leadership program which happens through a walk with a teacher of mine. His name is Sujit Ravindran. Is based out of Italy. He takes 12 men out for a walk, and it's called the leadership being walk. And you actually you leave behind your mobile phone. You don't have a mobile phone, you don't have a purse, you are not carrying a single pie with you, and you go for almost 8+ days walk. Okay, almost 9 days of walk in rural Gujarat on the banks of Narmada. And as you go through different learning. And it's a grueling walk where you hardly get to eat. You live in villages, with villagers. Okay, whatever they give you, you eat that. So it's virtually, a life of a saint that you live. As typical wandering monk for almost, for the 10 days or so. Now, for me, I just give an example. That created a huge shift for me, in last few months, and I think I was much more ready for this pandemic than most people. I think that really, helped me, that walk and that whole leadership being. So I'm just giving an example. You need to constantly be, and it was not a holiday. It was a grueling 9 days, blisters on my leg. I lost a lot of weight. That was a good thing. But the point is, there are days when you used to eat only once in a day. Otherwise, also your meal was only twice in a day. You used to eat 50% of what normally you eat. Like things like that. I mean, the point is that that was a development journey. That was a learning, for me. On a daily basis, one thing which is very important, and I believe everybody should do, uh, is read something. Okay, before you call it a day, and it can be even a blog. Okay, so for example, I have this 5, 6 blogs that I follow, and I've been following for last 15 years. Okay, so I ensure that out of this 5, 6 blogs, one of the blog posts, come what may, I read, and it generates whatever it gives me. I follow them. I love reading them, or a book that you are interested in. One more thing as a practice, and this is, for example, my daughter is pretty young. I mean, she's just 14. Last 6, 7 years, she has this every year diary. She writes, she journals every night. And the most, I mean, this is a discipline that I've not seen in too many people. I'm not as disciplined as her, okay, but one of the things that I love doing is, which I've not been able to, I must confess that I've not been regular with it, is write 5 things that you are grateful for. I call it the gratitude journal. Trust me, if you are able to write every day 5 things that you are grateful for, it gives you a lot of peace. It gives you a lot of, it clears your mind very differently. And to me, having a clear mind is the greatest learning that one can have, because then you're empty to absorb more. Okay, so yeah, so that's something which I do. Some of the practices since you asked.
All right, good. Thank you for that. And I will move on to the last question from my end. And this had to be here since we are, whatever present situation we are facing. And I have a few questions in the chat box related to that as well. But let me ask in general, what are your views on dealing with this present situation that we're facing as an HR professional? I think some of the questions that are coming to me are that were coming to me were related to, how do you keep employees motivated? How do you keep employees engaged? And another question, I think it came from Swarnali, where she asked, what about when things open up, and then what happens? How should we prepare when the lockdown gets over? So different kinds of questions have come. I've just kind of given you an overview of what are the questions. I think one, I'm just reading out one from Swarnali, where she asked, could you please tell us what will be the challenges faced as an HR when the operations resume after lockdown? So one is the present. What are your views? What can we do, and what are you doing? And also, once this lockdown is over, what kind of preparedness we should have?
Yeah. So, okay, what I love saying is the workforce, and the workplace. Okay, all three have to change. It's a new world. The lockdown is over as you're entering, and it's the right question. How prepared you are to face the post-lockdown scenario. You are actually entering a new world. Okay, so the way you used to work, it is going to change. I mean, just imagine and trust me, it's just been 6 weeks, 7 weeks. Okay, it's not been, it's not really a very longish period. It's just been 6 to 7 weeks, and it already looks to be a new world. When is the last time you used to do this kind of virtual, interaction? Okay, I mean, every interaction is in the virtual world. People are so comfortable, using each and every virtual tool which is there. So, the way, what I'm trying to say is, the way you used to work is going to look very different. There will be huge saving that is going to happen for every organization on traveling. Today, you realize that, the 6 hours flight that you used to take for those 2, 3 meetings, many of them can easily be done on the virtual world. And there will be a lot of acceptance of that. work from home, easier said than done. Work from home has always been there, as a policy in most organizations. But the policy, which was as a policy, it was something which was always looked down upon. In the sense, in India, the way the mindset is, if you're working from home, ये तो, आज छुट्टी में है, work from home कर दिया. Like you used to always suspect every work from home application that you used to get. Today, that's going to be the new normal in the new world. People will work from home. A lot of organizations, we are hearing enough, okay, are already talking in terms of a large part of their workforce will be working, from home. So that's how the work is going to look like. The workforce, there will be a lot of, the so-called gig economy that we used to talk about, but hardly it got adapted by most organization. For example, today, if you see, and we used to talk about it and we all know of it, but there are very few organizations where it was really there in practice. For example, say Apple, the various apps that you see in Apple. Who are these guys? I mean, they are like all programmers. They come in, they will do a work, they will get into some of those projects, create whatever they want to create, and then they'll go for a hike. Again, come back after 3 months. Like those are the what do you call as the gigs. And there are a lot of those gigs which will be visible more, in the workplace, where they will come in and be giving their expertise, and as the expertise are, as the inputs are over, they probably will go for their hike or whatever it is. So you'll have a lot of acceptance of such workforce. Then, in terms of the workplace that I said, it is definitely going to be a hybrid world. Okay, it will be a combination of work from office and work from home. The hybrid economy is going to be there, and that's the new world. That is definitely going to be there. Okay, so yeah, so it's a new world. How an organization should be ready? Should I answer that question as well? Because that was a question which was
Yes,
asked.
yes.
I think there's a lot of readiness. Some of the directives, for example, we are opening up some of our offices from tomorrow, from Monday, sorry, day after tomorrow. So you need to plan it out, okay, in terms of, small detailing is also important. One is, of course, you'll have to have 20-30% of your whatever, whichever is this thing, but not more than 30% of your workforce should be present at any given point of time. Don't expose the entire population to everybody else. Ideally speaking, some of the things that a lot of organizations are adopting, including us, in every office, we are dividing the population into two parts. Okay, so that even if your 30% of the population is coming, for example, the 20 people in an office, you're divided into 10 and 10. Now, this 10 people, even if they're coming for that particular week and 30% of them, there can be different 3 people are coming every day. But that 3 people is only getting exposed to those 10 people, so that there is no cross, exposure which is happening. Are you getting what I'm saying? So suddenly, the interesting part is we were all talking about open offices, okay, and that was the new, the new workplaces to look like. The old workplaces used to actually have that 5x5 kind of small cubicles and all. Those things are not there in the new age, organization. You might see adaptation of some of those old way of doing things. If you are a large office and your office design is right, then try and ensure there is a one-way movement that happens within the office. Okay, find out which are the touch points. For example, washroom and all, where people touch it, the tap is touched number of times. Can you have a kind of a sensor tap can be there or not? I mean, these are things you'll have to look into. There are a lot of things, and I can just go on and on, but every small thing need to be looked at in a workplace I'm talking of. The workplace is going to look very different.
All right. Thank you so much for answering that question. So I'm done with my questions, and I will now get into the chat box to see what are the questions that we have from the audience. So in case you have asked your question, you can still ask. And so we roughly, I think we have less than 10 minutes now. So let's see how many questions we can take. All right. So all right. So there's one question. This is from Ayushi Ghosh, and she's asking for advice. So she is saying that for young professionals aspiring to be a CHRO like you, what would be your advice?
Okay, one thing is in HR, to sustain yourself in HR, you need to love people. Something which is very important. Okay, so it's easier said than done. But remember, this function is all about people and nothing else. So you need to love people. Your energy, people should give you energy. That's something which is very important. Uh, Always be conscious about the space that you create. Uh, in every interaction with individuals. Uh, that is something which is very important, as a HR professional. I think these are some of the and HR the function is emerging, and there's a lot which is happening around you. For example, technology. Technology is there's a lot of adoption of technology today. Everything is driven through technology. So ensure that you adapt and understand the various technologies that are involved in HR. There are a lot of this. DNI as an agenda was never there in an organization a decade back, or even 7, 8 years back. It was not on the key agenda. Today, every organization, is one of the key agenda. There's so much is happening in the whole DNA agenda today. LGBT, and there's so much which is which need to get incorporated. In India, we are still at a nascent stage. Okay, so ensure that you learn about all the new thought areas around HR and adapt to those thoughts. Be part of those special projects where you can be seen as, and you can get into some of those projects of those implementation which is happening in your organization, or bring in those new ideas and be part of those implementation of those new ideas. So find out, but more than anything else, what is very important is that, as I said, you should love people. People should give you energy, and learn to love yourself, learn to love people around you, and that's very important.
All right, thank you. So I'll take one more question. This is from Gaurav again. I think I asked one question from him earlier. So he's asking about best practices that an organization can adopt to build their employee resilience in this new normal times that we are having. Like you said, we would have a hybrid existence. You're talking about work from home as well as work in office, and I think also in the current pandemic situation, the lockdown period, uh, there are a lot of insecurities and negative thoughts that are cropping up in the minds of people. So I think the aspect of resilience has come up now. And so what I understand from his question, he's asking about maybe ideas or best practices regarding building employee resilience in these tough times.
Yeah. So you know, people are talking a lot about resilience these days. Okay, and I love talking about. I don't know if you've heard about this. The anti-fragility. I mean, an anti-fragility is actually beyond resilience. Okay, or robustness. It's the resilience. The resilient actually resist the shocks and what's happening around you. There's a resistance in that resilience. But anti-fragility is actually going beyond and actually getting better out of the whole experience. And I think that is should be the endeavor that every individual, every organization should have. Now, having said that, one of the key element is there has to be absolutely free communication that should happen within the organization. Whatever are the steps that is happening, I know that there will be tough measures. A lot of organizations will be forced to take, but what is important is how you're communicating. There has to be absolute, transparent, and regular communication happening for anything that is happening within the organization, so that that gives a lot of confidence, for them to the employees on the management of the organization. Uh, it also, they don't suspect anything, any decision that is being taken, because all of it are being communicated in a transparent manner. So that is something, which is very, very important. Our regular communication, as I said, that's something which is very, very critical. And adaptation, allowing people to adapt to the new world. One is adapting technology. A lot of organizations are still struggling. They took a lot of time. Large conglomerates have taken a lot of time to really adapt technology fully. And this is a virtual world. So ensure that that adaptation happens, so that they also feel constantly connected. With the larger organization on a much more regular basis. Okay, so for example, I used to always have a Monday morning meeting. But now I ensure that every day at 10, there's a team meeting that happens. Okay. So, sometimes it's very short. Okay. But, we ensure that we as a team connect every day. I've not missed a single day of that connect. That's something which is very important. Constantly connect with your team. That gives them a lot of assurance that, the organization is fully connected. Because that's the feeling, which is important. It is a new world, okay, and I think one of the element that everybody has to understand, and as HR, you need to really, as a message, should percolate down, that you are not being singled out, or for that matter, you are not the only one who is there in this current scenario. Every person that you come across, whether it's your neighbor, whether it's your family, whether it's your industry or any other industry, are all equally affected, in the current scenario. And that's the reality. So it's a new world, and all of us has to be there and come out better, not be resilient only, but actually not resist it through our resilience, but adapt it, absorb it, and come out better, in this particular scenario. As individual, as professional, one more thing I want to say, as to the HR professionals here, this is a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity in the current scenario. Please see where your opportunity lies, whether it's within your organization or, outside the organization. For example, I don't want to get into the whole, journey of mine or anything like that. But do you have, Zubin? I can take 1 minute just to connect few dots.
Sure.
So I was talking about blogs that I read. Okay, now I used to read, and I read today also. None of you must have heard that name also. It's called stevepavlina.com. Okay, I used to read this blog for last almost 15 years. I've been reading this blog. Now this guy is, his blog used to be one of the most successful in the motivational, whatever you call it, that particular genre of writing. So it was one of the best, possible, one of the well-read blogs globally, which was there. Now this guy suddenly started saying, and I remember it was just around the GFC crisis time, and I was in the banking, area. So that was a time when I suddenly read that he's saying that, I'm hearing about, since now I want to get, out of blogging, and I want to start speaking, and I want to be able to speak, I want to join a Toastmasters club. Today, Toastmasters India chapter, the whole India district, and that's the way they call it, is the largest in the world. And it's a 70, 80-year-old body. Now, that point of time, I wanted to explore about Toastmaster. I went to the website and explored about it. I sent a query that I'm from India, I want to know about it. Within 5 minutes, I receive a call from Bangalore, and I come to know that there are only few clubs which are there in India, and there's no club in North. Today, there is probably many hundred clubs in North. And that is how I got connected with Toastmasters. What I'm trying to say is, what connects where, you don't know. And, my new challenge that I took up, taking care of the learning space in ABN AMRO Bank, that happened exactly at GFC. So when everybody was actually, talking about layoffs, everybody was talking about redundancy, everybody was talking about cursing the organization, cursing the industry, everything else. For me, it became a great lab personally, where I could experiment with any workshop that I want to. In fact, I still remember one of the first workshops that I did at that point of time was a workshop on deep listening. It became such a rage within the organization that the senior management team, the senior most team, was asked to do that workshop. because people start talking about it. Something around deep listening. Imagine, banking area and aggressive MNC banking area, you're doing workshop on deep listening. So what I'm trying to say is that these are the times which defines you. A lot of people I've seen in GFC, the way many of the successful professionals were never able to come out of that crisis because they never invested onto themselves. They never looked at the opportunity and tried to invest into the opportunity. So invest into this opportunity. See where your calling lies. Bring in more innovation in the workplace that you work for. Bring in more innovation to the work that you do. Okay, see how you can actually contribute, better in the current scenario, because that is going to define you as a individual. That is going to define you. When you tell those stories to your grandkids about the time when all the buses stopped, all the vehicles, the roads went empty, and you were actually, hooked onto your four walls for, more than 2 months, you have a beautiful story to say, and how you actually rebuild your life very differently. And this is very true for a lot of these young professionals who are here. That's something. And life is a dream, so enjoy the dream. Huh? Always dream of this. This is also part of the dream, what's happening around us.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Thank you so much, Kaushik. This was a wonderful discussion. I'm already getting some thank you notes in the chat box. We learned a lot in this whole process of question answers that we're having. We were able to answer a few questions from the audience as well. So overall, really good. Thank you on behalf of the audience.
Any question, okay,
Yeah.
please, you can share my email ID to the larger audience. I'll be happy
Okay.
to answer. Okay, I take that as a responsibility. I might be late at times, but if it is within my means, I will definitely answer.
Sure, sure, sure. So thank you so much. Thank you to my whole audience for being here and participating. And thank you, Kaushik. We will definitely be in touch and we'll connect again sometime for another discussion.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye bye.
Bye.